Change is the hardest thing to sell and the hardest thing to implement. AI, I truly think, is different. This will separate those who become real laggards in the industry to those who accelerate. Good people don't fail if you set them down a correct path. We announced $5 million is our commitment to charity. The demise of the IT services channel has been written at least 5 times in my career. To fire is not when they're failing. To fire is when they are not in the right seat and not going to be successful.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Harvest. As you know, this is the podcast where we dive into ways you can improve your MSP without necessarily getting fixated on going after net new customers only. I've got a brilliant episode here for you because Dan Wensley, who is now CEO of the GTIA organization, who hopefully most of you will be familiar with, but we will dive into, is here and offers a real diverse range of experience that maybe some of our other guests perhaps don't, comes from a slightly different background. So I'm really keen to dive into that. But before we do, I'm going to ask Dan a misconception. That's what we always do on this podcast. So Dan, I need a misconception from you. How you doing?
I'm great, James. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation today. Well, I think the misconception of me in the industry would be my love affair with all things not technical. Sitting on a tractor is my favorite thing to do. Building, tinkering, when I'm not there at an event or in a technology advancement conversation, I am happiest on my little Kubota tractor, and I sometimes just get dirt delivered just so I can move it.
Excellent. I love that. And Dan, you're gonna have to tell me what was the line that you dropped when you joined the call? Where were you last night?
It's the day after the Super Bowl, and as you can see from my background, I'm up in a cabin in central Ontario, Canada, and got the opportunity to snowmobile to a Super Bowl party last night. So across the lake we went and snowmobile to a Super Bowl event, and snowmobile home across the lake is quite a unique experience, but wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. That, straight away, ideas come to me. Whenever I'm thinking about this, I can't help but think about video content ideas. I see a new series on the snowmobile, the two of us, we can chat on the way, that kind of holding the GoPro. Anyway, that's one for another time. The reason I've got you on the show is because you've had an incredible career with Passport Tools, ScalePad, many other organizations, and there was a bit of a pattern when I was looking at, okay, what can I talk to Dan about? We could go down the GTIA route, of course, and we will do later on, but I'm really interested in the sort of the process that you've been through. I think it's probably quite similar in terms of the way you've gone through the different organizations you've worked with, in terms of being that sort of strategic advisor, looking from the outside, initially understanding what's working, what's not, and then maybe offering different levels of kind of input and advice as you go along. Well, first of all, before I go any further, would you say that's correct before I just lead you down a completely wrong path?
Yeah, no, it's been an incredible journey. I mean, I've been blessed to have had the opportunity to work in new technology, advancement in our industry, some innovative areas, whether it's the early days of RMM for MSP, the early days of Linux even. I go back to that, the early days of the internet, selling
yes.
T1s. So I have absolutely been blessed to be put in enviable positions to work in businesses but we're pushing some pretty big change. And I think, this is what MSPs go through, constant change. So how do you hyperscale a business while continuing to evolve and pushing the envelope of change?
Yeah, exactly that. And there's so many people that are asking themselves, what do I do? Do I hire? Do I fire? Do I rework? Especially with, there's of course loads of change happening in the industry now more than ever, week to week. So what I'm wondering is if we can maybe try and tap into some of your experience and see how that might relate to the MSPs that might be listening. So I guess the first question would be, it's kind of when you first take on a new project, and I guess you may have done this with GTIA as well, what's your approach? What do you start to look for in terms of like, okay, well, that's working. I think that's good. And where are the areas that I should address first? What is your approach? What's your mindset when you go into these companies?
There's a couple. And obviously, GTIA is no different, that we're coming into a new organization, a new trade association for the industry. And for me, simplicity and consistency are two foundational items that have really paid dividends for me. Again, being bringing in massive change evolutions in the industry from MSP to cybersecurity, to all the things that we did at ScalePad and the diversity of those technologies, making sure that you have an embedded foundation of value proposition and messaging and fundamental ideology that you can deploy. If you get into the change, and I always say change is the hardest thing to sell and the hardest thing to implement. So taking the steps to set a firm foundation for these organizations on what we were attempting to accomplish in very consumable, comprehensible terms, then you can get into the advancements and things like that. And it's the same thing we did here at GTIA. In the vendor community, for me, it always starts with people, but people, product, partners, and results. Those are the four fundamental terms that I had used throughout my career. Make sure you've got the right people in the place. Make sure those people are working on the right product for ultimately the partner, the MSP themselves. Don't bring the partner in too early if you're not ready, and you can be ahead of your skis.
You mean in the consultation loop? You mean
100%.
Into the conversation?
Yeah, even as just an ideology, partners are such an integral part of developing new technologies and continuing to iterate. But make sure you've got dedicated people working on a product who understand ultimately the value is going to be in the eye of the partner. Then bring in the partner, and then make sure you're delivering on those results. So a very linear path to an outcome has really been at the cornerstone of what we built over the last 30 years across 6 companies.
And so how do you know when you've got the right team players? I mean, we've been talking about this recently in some peer groups and things. We have this sort of working genius idea, but there's different ways of assessing the sort of players. How do you do that with some of these organisations that you walk into, very well established, and you need to get a lay of the land pretty quick on how it's going? I'm trying to relate this to an MSP. You might be looking at their team thinking, have I got the right people? Should I be switching this up? Or what's your kind of thought process?
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts on it. First of all, I think people take too much of the blame. The good people are good people. So make sure you've got good people, hearts in the right place, dedicated to their career, dedicated to the path. And then if they are struggling in an environment, I put it on the ownership, the management. Good people don't fail if you set them down a correct path. I hear too often, especially in the MSP community, over the decades, and hey, we hired a sales leader and they're going to solve all of our problems, and guess what, they didn't work out. So we tried it again, they didn't work. Well, is it that individual was successful somewhere else? You wouldn't have hired them if they weren't. You wouldn't have hired them or worked with them if you didn't think they were good people. So did they fail because of themselves or what you provided them? And I really think you need to take ownership as the MSP. If you build the foundation for them, good people will succeed. So when it comes to people, just make sure you've got great folks, good common sense, hearts in the right place, and the sky's the limit. And if they're struggling, you need to look internally, not say that sales leader or that new technical lead didn't do the job for us, because these are probably good people who had success in other places, but didn't have success with you. So is that them, or is our operation or our messaging that's to blame?
Yeah, excellent point. And so, I mean, you have some limited, direct contact with MSPs and things. Is there anything you see within some of the MSPs that you come across that you think, okay, maybe that is an area perhaps that becomes a bit of a challenging one? So maybe it's something they're doing in terms of the people management side of things. Obviously, we all know MSP owners typically come from a technical background that's been well covered and documented. Is there anything there you think that's maybe a struggle, or anything that people can do to improve how they're looking after their people?
Yeah, I think, again, for me, I mean, being around tens of thousands of MSPs for the last 30 years, I consider myself a continued student of the industry, and I need to be learning from the MSPs themselves, and to hear the struggles through adoption of cyber, adoption of cloud, adoption of RMM and recurring revenue models, the complexity these folks have been put through and continue now with AI, and how is that going to impact our operations as a business. I will first and foremost say it is incredible what they are able to accomplish. Looking at all the new technologies coming in and having to deal with internally their people and then the technological demands of their customers while staying
It's almost
profitable.
overwhelming, isn't it?
When you sit down and think about it, it truly is.
Yeah.
You know, I think running a vendor in an emerging technology is easy. It's step-by-step a process. After 30 years working with MSPs, bless them, because the complexity that they have to deal with from all of the outside influences, technology innovation, while dealing internally with people and your own staff, and then your customers' demands on top of that. It's a complex business, and I think they beat themselves up more than they need to. And what is incredibly humbling is their desire and integral understanding that they must come together as a community. And this is why I'm so excited about what we're doing at GTIA. And I've been a part of communities my entire career and even built a lot of these technology businesses based on education and community. That's the one thing they do so incredibly well is they go to the events, they become members of peer groups, they work collaboratively with each other because they know that there's a lot of change going on and they can't do it alone.
Yeah, definitely, and we need to touch more on what's going on at GTIA shortly. But I'm just interested to know, in terms of the sort of the just going back to the sort of the way that you approach this with different organisations. So we talked about the people, which is obviously the fundamental part of it. Is there any bottleneck that you see that comes up again and again with MSPs? Anything in particular? Obviously, there's a massive amount on their plate, as we've covered. They're generalists, right? But is there a bottleneck you see in terms of what you would maybe, if you were to take over an MSP at some point, that you would address, perhaps? Do you think? Is there one that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, they're so incredibly dedicated to process through the technology service delivery model. I would question whether they are as or as attuned to being able to deliver that process to the customer and have that communication. We've talked, the day of the QBR was born when RMM came along, and over decades we've struggled with the QBR, and the QBR was born out of a necessity to show value to the customer, to the end user. Not that value wasn't being ever delivered, but the eye of the perception of the customer. Would they see it if I'm fixing all of their infrastructure remotely was always the question. And I think that they're so knowledgeable and such an integral part of every SMB business. You cannot operate without your technology backing. And we've talked about, themes like sitting on the right side of the table with your customer. I think not enough MSPs have made that an incredible, integral part of the business. They have the right tool stack. They have the right process and procedures. They have the great people. Are they truly embracing the customer into that sequence? Delivering great service is absolutely there, but it has to be perceived by the customer, and they have to know that you are there. And that's been the difference in the conversations I've had of those who seem to have this incredible sense of being a part of the businesses they serve rather than just the IT service company of those businesses.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. So it's almost like you're not taking a standard model and sort of forcing it on your client, but actually fully understanding how their business works and sort of molding to that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. It's dedicated to the customer success. I'm not here to provide you an IT service. I'm here to provide you an ability to achieve your success as a business with leveraging the tool of IT and the support that we can provide. I think that in the conversations I've had with some of the bigger MSPs who really dialed it in is that dedication to customer success, not the speeds and feeds and SLAs that we're delivering to accomplish those.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an ongoing conversation everywhere. If you go to any of the peer groups, especially GTIA and stuff, people talking about how they sort of run these sessions, how they run the QBRs. It's an ongoing thing.
It is.
Transitioning to more of like an analyst role.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was going to ask you about was obviously you've dealt with teams and people are a perennial challenge. So you've talked about potentially finding looking for the good ones and making sure that you support them. How do you know when enough is enough? Because this is something that comes up quite a lot in conversations I'm part of. How do you know when to fire, and also when to hire in terms of capacity? Is there something you apply to that?
I mean, to fire is not when they're failing. To fire is when they are not in the right seat and not going to be successful. And make sure that it's not your reason they're failing. Because if you are firing good people because they're failing inside your business and you just bring in another good person, they are destined to fail as well. So making sure that you've determined that, no, we have provided the ability for others to succeed in this role, and we have proof of that, and this individual, for whatever reason, isn't in the right seat at the right time. You are doing your business a favor. You are frankly doing them a favor. There have been great folks throughout my career, ex-colleagues of mine who were not in the right seat at the right time. We've parted ways. We've remained close. They've gone on to do incredible things in the industry. So sometimes the right person isn't in the right job. That's a time to separate. If you've got somebody who's not being successful and can't be, even though you are convinced you've given them every opportunity to do so, then they're the wrong person and they're in the wrong seat. Those are, for me, the easy decisions. And it doesn't mean that separating isn't an incredibly hard thing to do often, but it is needed. You are actually doing them a disservice by not doing it sometimes. And many of them have come and said, look, in order to advance my career, or I think I would be better in this place, there's no shame in that, and full support of folks who have moved on. With the one exception, James, the grass is not always greener. And I've often counseled, now over 30 years and working with probably thousands of team members, I'm more blatantly now saying, you know, that grass might look greener over there, but you need to be there in order for it to cultivate, and maybe you won't be. And unfortunately, too many come back around and, 6 months later, 8 months later, hey, I'd like to come back. I might have made a mistake. So counsel them.
That's so common, isn't it? I can think of numerous people that I'm familiar with, that have done that. I guess it's a natural thing. You just sat there looking across, and maybe it's a day when you're not particularly motivated or whatever, and it suddenly looks like a good idea.
Yeah. It's the people component of it. Again, I've been going all the way back to 25. Just did a call with a major vendor, and the director of that organization. She worked with me 18 years ago, and she's been at one big vendor for 18 years now, and I couldn't be prouder of that. So there's a great example of somebody who left, went on, and found the right job. But there's too many who start jumping around from either MSP to MSP or vendor to vendor. Just stay with it. You'll do well. There's lots of opportunity.
So I'm going to move you on slightly. I think you must have been involved in so many meetings where you've sat and discussed products and pricing.
Oh, yes.
Yes. If we stood up Wensley Technologies, LLC, tomorrow, how do you reckon your stack would look? Not the technology behind it, but what would your model be? Do you have any thoughts around pricing and that kind of that? Well, I suppose there's a value prop element in there that you touched on at the beginning as well. But any thoughts on the pricing and how you'd evolve that maybe depending on? Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot there slightly. I know.
Listen, my experience and expertise has been maybe even expertise. I'll say my experience has been certainly on the vendor side and what the value of the technology that we are delivering to the MSP. What can they charge for it? Is it a sell-through product or is it going into their technology stack and being aware of that? There is method to the madness, and there is a process. What has worked for the vendor side is as you're successful, as we, the cliche is as you grow, we grow, and we succeed together. That model and methodology has worked very well. And if we are moving MSPs away from, certainly the break fix model, but if we're moving them away from per seat pricing or per site pricing or whatever they're looking to do, it should be the impact you're having on the business on how you're being compensated. And if you can prove, hey, we're helping you accomplish your goals, not just delivering an OpEx cost to the business, that I think would drive value and increase value that you can charge to the customer if they can define it not only as just a cost center and I've got to pay my insurance, I've got to pay the rent, I've got to pay these other things, and IT services is just one of those check boxes. Your value maybe isn't as high as it could be. So creating value with being a part of the business, because frankly we are in our industry, I think would drive numeration and value, which results in revenue for the MSP.
Are you tired of wasting time on basic proposal tools? Sales Builder goes beyond PDFs, automating your entire sales process to win more deals and boost profits. Do you want to have a look at how it works? First off, we provide you with the foundation of a nice, simple, centralized view of your company's contacts and all of the useful related data points, and that's automatically synchronized with your PSA. The most efficient MSPs are ruthless about only selling a standardized portfolio. Connect to your distributors for your hardware details and availability too, your PSA to pull in your managed services, and then clear out all of that noise and distraction of ad hoc products and services you've been selling over the years. Define a tight portfolio with service bundles, set your margins, specify standard up and cross-sell items, and make sure that everyone is doing the same thing right across the business. Once you're clear on exactly what you want to be selling, it's time to work out who you can sell it to. Our white space analysis module helps your sales teams get laser focused. Spot the upcoming contract renewals, anything you're underbilling, visualize the service gaps, and focus on the most profitable account growth opportunities. So you know what you're selling, you know you're selling to, it's time to send a proposal. Get beautiful, error-free, standardized and interactive quotes sent out without all that copying and pasting from supplier portals, adjusting templates, editing product information, all that stuff that just hemorrhages time and profits. With drag and drop content blocks and templates, you can make sure your document really resonates with your customers' needs or even their vertical, but in a way that's fast to produce because it's standardized. Plus, of course, customers can edit quantities and options there on the fly. They can e-sign, and you can see all of this going on right from within Sales Builder. Start your free trial today and see how much you could be missing. We have got a great team of real people with lots of experience here, so let's chat and see how Sales Builder can help you take your MSP to that next level.
Yeah, this is a perennial issue, isn't it? So many times you hear that MSPs will struggle with justifying what they're charging, and I think that's I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's the missing link, isn't it? It's linking it to the performance and savings or whatever it might be. Dan, it's been fun to try and dive into a few little tips there and some of your experience. I could go on that track for a long, long time, but we have some segments in this show that I need to run you through. So the first one is, this is industry manure. So this is your opportunity to tell me what you come across in the industry, and this is the unfiltered version of Dan, what do you think is a total crock of shit that you hear bandied around by experts that just doesn't ring true to you?
The doom and gloom. I have read, if you go back, you can go back through all of the cycles we've been, the demise of the IT services channel has been written at least 5 times in my career, whether managed services was going to cause this complete consolidation and operational and the demise of the MSP model. We're talking about it today with AI. So you can replace AI with the term cloud, with the term managed services, to the term solution provider, and read the same article over the last 25 years and say it's going to, end this industry. It's not. That said, there is a lot of change coming. The things we were talking about a decade ago, consolidation, that's certainly starting to happen now. So there is change afoot. There's no question. We know that to be the constant in our industry. But I get really frustrated when I hear, well, this is going to wipe us out and this is going to change. And, well before even Jay McBain was doing what he's doing now, he was with a PC manufacturer and laptops. And I remember his article saying, "Oh, with everything that's going on with cloud, PCs sales are going to go down and hardware is over." No, it didn't. Hardware, sales went up. So we always seem to look the opposite way, where the direction of the industry is actually going. So I think there's no greater opportunity for the community, for the industry. This is not doom and gloom, and I'm pretty optimistic about AI's impact on what our industry specifically is going to benefit from when it comes to new technology advancements, because we've always benefited from it, never had a downward turn because of it.
Really interesting. It feels different this time, but I suspect that's what everyone says at every particular stage. the cloud, the whether it's the tin or whatever. But I agree with you. I think it's an enormous opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I tell you what is different for sure is the speed of change. There is no question, we were beating the managed services drum for a decade and finally starting to get some traction. We go back to the early 2000s for MSP evolution. The internet took a while, but it took traction. And then look at cloud. Look at how quickly cloud went from a term we heard for the first time to being the infrastructure of choice across the globe. AI is so each of these evolutions have accelerated adoption speeds. AI is certainly, accelerated it again. So the only, change is consistent, but the only thing I've really seen is the acceleration of it. You need to be a part of the conversation now about AI, because in a blink of an eye, you can be miles behind, because it's moving that quickly. Cloud adoption, hey, if you missed a couple of cycles, if you didn't go to that trade event or find out what was going on in cloud, you could catch up. AI, I truly think, is different. This will separate those who become real laggards in the industry to those who accelerate. I think that gap will widen because of the speed of adoption and implementation of AI.
Yeah, and I guess the key difference between something like maybe the speed that the MSP, the recurring services model, came in is that if you look at that compared to maybe cloud to a degree and to AI, it's the fact it's driven by the consumer, isn't it? So it's it's such a visible piece of tech that people are being shown. Everyone is aware of ChatGPT, and they're slowly getting more familiar with some of the more advanced tools, and so there's no choice. It's out there. It's kind of the genie's out the bottle.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the consumers, probably took a little while longer to understand cloud, but they certainly did. I tell you, I was at the Consumer Electronics Show this year, just a few weeks ago.
All right, great.
And I went specifically to see how the consumers were being pitched AI, where they saw, and you nailed it. The consumer, the customer is going to say, I need this now. They never came to the MSPs and said, I need to get into the cloud. They never came to the MSPs or the solution providers of the day and say, I want to be on a managed service. That didn't happen. Now with cloud, it was certainly, hey, should I be moving everything to the cloud? A lot of savvy customers did that. Today, I would say every customer is understanding the need and opportunity around AI, and who are they turning to? Their MSP. How do you help me? So for the first time, we're being pulled rather than we're pushing technologies into the SMB market.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, literally, it was only yesterday I turned on Sky News, and there's a full article about, I don't know if you've seen Claude Bot. It's that's quite a detailed thing to be talking about on mainstream media. Quite
Agreed.
A specific piece of technology.
Yeah.
So listen, we're coming towards the end of our chat. Thank you so much for that. But we can't let you go without touching on the GTIA topic. Now, listen, we also have a final segment, and this is called Pass the Pitchfork. And it basically ties in beautifully with the GTIA topic. It wasn't orchestrated by me, but our previous guest, Perry Ashby of Urban Network, he asks, why do some MSPs not get involved in community, do you think? What is it? Do you think there's some hesitation there? Do you think there's some sort of fear of information sharing or something along those lines? Why do you think that might be?
I don't know. So maybe all of those things are the reasons. What I can only speak from my experience. Those who do are the fastest growing. They are more connected. I've seen nothing but, tactical and translatable value of being in a peer group for the MSPs that I've been around. And I truly believe that there is no more an important time as an industry, as an individual MSP trying to go it alone, to be a part of a community than today. Because of what we just talked about, James, the pace of change is so rapid that it will take, everybody to do it. And there's some incredible, tangible evidence of the results that coming together as a community and sharing. And if you're going to insulate yourself and say, I don't want to share what we do, or we've got some secret sauce over here that is our differentiator, I can tell you that your differentiator can be, extrapolated so many times by gaining the insights of others. I've seen it firsthand over my career. So I don't know the reason, I don't know the motivation, but all I can say is those who do, in my opinion, are growing faster and in a better position.
Yeah, absolutely. And having been part of the community for a long time, I see that too. I can only think that perhaps there are some that are that busy firefighting that they haven't quite got a handle on the value that it offers, and so they sort of put it off, or maybe I'll do that another time. It's not quite as valuable as client work, but until you see the multiplier effect of having been at one of those events and learning and establishing a network around you, then you don't really necessarily perhaps get it.
For a vendor, like the vendor, I will tell you that the reason I went to CES was to get educated and see that community. And I'm still doing 30 events a year, and have been for in all of, whether CEO of ScalePad or here at GTA. Obviously, we're a community-based organization, a membership-based organization, but I've been doing this for 30 years. I needed to stay in the market and understand and have the conversations with the MSP over breakfast about what they were seeing in order to stay educated. Coming at it from a place of, hey, we know what we're doing with the new technology. You should just buy it, and I'll let some sales reps have the conversation with you. Not good enough. You need to understand what's going on in the market. And even if you aren't participatory or sharing your secret sauce, that's fine. Come, listen, learn. But be a part of it, I think, is a necessity. And the beauty of our industry, it's what has kept me, so enthusiastic and so inspired over the last 30 years, is how this industry does come together and participate to overcome changes and challenges.
Yeah, it plays a really vital role at the moment, doesn't it? And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the breakfast chats. That's where it's at. That and obviously afterwards at the bar, but the breakfast chats, yeah, it's amazing who you'll meet at some of these events. Listen, our final segment is the Yell from the Barn. And that is just your opportunity to let us know what you're up to and how it's going at GTIA. Normally, I'd give you 30 seconds, but as it's GTIA, we can chat about this a bit longer. We're what now? Are we a year in now to the rebrand? Is it, or maybe not so long? Is that 1 year?
Yeah. January 9th was our 1 year anniversary. And again, I've been a member of this membership association for well over 20 years. It has paid both personally for me, dividends in the businesses I've operated. It has delivered value. And I am so excited for this next iteration of GTIA, where we're solely focused on the global IT services community and the membership and what we can give back. It's an exciting time, I think, for the industry. It's an exciting time thanks to our endowment and our opportunity to give back to the industry. I couldn't have scripted the opportunity to be a part, certainly in this capacity, of GTIA at this time any better. And I'm excited for the future, for what the foundation is doing, for what we're able to do on the charitable giving side. We announced $5 million is our commitment to charity this year. It was $2 million last year. We have new events. We have new communities being exposed, and just a great opportunity. And I'm excited for the entire industry and GTIA's opportunity to contribute to it.
It's definitely a real evolution, isn't it? And you've got, so from the outside looking in, resources and focus are the things that stand out for me. If you've got someone perhaps who's been along to a GTI event, CompTIA event in the past, and maybe thought, okay, well, I kind of been to a few of those, and I didn't feel that maybe I got as much value as I wanted out of it. let's boil it down. What do you think? What do you think will be different about the new guys of GTIA? If someone's listening to this, thinking, is it worth my time coming along? What do you think will be different? What changes would you see, or what are you making?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about those things. Again, there was the opportunity not to gain the value. It's our responsibility. As I said to you earlier, James, if our partners or members aren't seeing value, it's on us. It's not on them. So we have a renewed commitment in shockingly 4 areas of foundation, people being one. Resources, number 2, we're doubling down on the resources. 3 is that community aspect and really expanding the opportunity to come together as a community. And the last one is frankly new to the organization, which is outcomes or advancement or return on investment of time and effort. This organization did such a great job. And again, I gained so much as thousands did out of it. But it's our obligation to make sure every member is getting value. And the team has refocused us on, we're going to look at the outcome for each individual member and what does that mean. And it could be, more white papers we put out or research papers. And, we spend millions of dollars on research papers. One of the things that I uncovered is they're not being utilized enough. So we have a renewed commitment to make sure that if we're going to build it, make sure we're delivering it, make sure somebody's getting value out of it. Just to say we did it, and there's so many, just dozens of great content that our partner education team does that comes out of the advisory councils that all the members sit on. But we've got to make sure that those things are being delivered, and we've got a renewed commitment to be the voice for the channel and of the channel and deliver that. You're going to see that in a multitude of ways, certainly at ChannelCon and some of the other initiatives that we're doing to make sure every member and more members are getting more value.
So what I'm hearing is there's going to be clear behind the scenes, and I'm sure you won't want to expose all this now, but there's probably clear KPIs in terms of sort of growth and utilization of resources, and it's kind of bringing in the targets, I guess.
Yeah, we have 3 clear objectives. And again, as a non-for-profit trade association, this typically wasn't done. We're doing it now. We have 3 fundamental growth areas. One is more MSPs need to be a part of the community and be a part of the conversation. There's been a vibrant community of MSPs involved in GTIA, but it hasn't been big enough, and we're going to expand on that. The second is the all-important vendor and innovation side. We need to be providing more value to the vendor community through exposure, through branding, through the opportunities for more thought leadership to be a part of the industry. Everybody's got their path to sell product. We're here to make sure that voice and that value is expanded. And the last is to get our utilization rates up. Millions of dollars of research and insight is going unused. So making sure that the members in the industry are taking advantage of the information we provide. Carol in April is one of the best in the industry. She always has been as an analyst, and she's going to be more places that even she thought she was going to be this year.
Get a shock this year, is she?
She is. So we're excited for all of it. And I can tell you that the entire GTIA team is behind all 3 of those initiatives.
Amazing. Honestly, I've been through a lot of that research myself. Certainly sat on the vendor side, we've been able to utilize it. There's some great stuff in there, but it's very obvious that it's underutilized, that people just don't know it's there. And it's great to hear that's going to be surfacing. Dan, I'm going to ask you for one final thing, and that's just a message. So someone's listening to this, never been to a GTI event before, and they're on the fence about coming. What would you say to them?
Come and experience it. It's there. We are here as the nonprofit trade association for the industry. We have all but one goal, which is to provide value to each and every member. We're completely agnostic inside the industry, other than to our members' commitment to your outcome. So we're here to deliver value. That's our core, and come and check it out. I'm pretty sure you'll see that, and I want to make sure that every IT service provider and vendor understand that they need and want and are getting value out of being a GTIA member.
Dan Wensley, I'm thrilled that you're CEO of GTIA. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this evolves, and thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, as always.
Thank you, James. Pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.